The morning sun cast long shadows across Naval Amphibious Base Coronado as another class of SEAL hopefuls prepared for what would become the most unforgettable training session of their lives. The Pacific breeze carried the familiar sounds of military preparation, boots on concrete, equipment checks, and the low murmur of nervous conversation among men who thought they understood what strength looked like. They were about to learn otherwise. From which military base are you watching this story unfold today? If this tale of hidden power resonates with you, consider following for more untold stories from behind the scenes of America's elite forces. The medical station at BUD/S training facility operated with clockwork precision every Tuesday morning. Recruits lined up for routine health checks, injury assessments, and the mandatory wellness evaluations that kept the Navy's lawyers satisfied. The building itself was standard military issue, sterile white walls, motivational posters about pushing through pain, and medical equipment that had seen better days but still functioned adequately. Security consisted of a single MP stationed outside and standard base protocols that everyone followed without question. Dr. Maya Chen took her position at the examination station at 0800 hours sharp, just another medical officer in Navy scrubs and practical sneakers. Her black hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and she carried a standard medical bag over her shoulder. Nothing about her 5 feet 4 inches frame or gentle demeanor suggested she was anything other than exactly what her credentials claimed, a Navy corpsman with specialized trauma training, assigned to monitor the physical welfare of SEAL candidates during their grueling preparation. The examination line moved steadily through the morning routine. A recruit winced as she checked his shoulder injury from yesterday's obstacle course. Another candidate sat nervously as she evaluated a potential stress fracture in his foot. A group of hopefuls waited their turn, some checking their watches as they calculated how much training time they were losing to medical protocol. Several maintained the 1,000-yard stare they'd been practicing, trying to project the mental toughness their instructors demanded. Maya's movements around the medical bay were economical, efficient, but somehow different. Her eyes tracked not just injuries and vital signs, but positioning, exits, potential threats. The assessment was so natural, so automatic, that not even she seemed aware she was doing it. When she reached for medical supplies, her hand movements displayed a precision that went beyond standard medical training. Next, she called softly, her voice carrying just enough authority to move the line forward without seeming commanding. A nervous recruit approached, favoring his left leg slightly. "Twisted ankle during PT, ma'am," he reported, using the respectful tone all candidates maintained with medical personnel. "Let's take a look," Maya replied, guiding him to the examination table. Her assessment was thorough but gentle, professional hands checking range of motion and identifying the exact nature of the injury. As she worked, her phone buzzed with a text message. Glancing down, she saw a notification from Dr. Patricia Holbrook flash across her screen. "Your last 3 sessions have been rescheduled. Avoidance isn't progress, Maya. Healing requires engagement." Maya's expression tightened almost imperceptibly before she dismissed the notification without responding. The mandatory counseling sessions had been part of her assignment to this position, but 18 months seemed excessive even by Navy standards. "You're cleared for light duty," she told the recruit, handing him an ice pack and a form. "Rise protocol for 48 hours. No running until Thursday." The recruit accepted the instructions with visible relief. "Thank you, ma'am. I was worried I'd be dropped from the program." Maya offered a reassuring smile. "Minor setback. Follow the treatment plan, and you'll be back to full training soon." She had just finished updating his medical record when the facility's main doors burst open with unusual force. For individuals in civilian clothes entered with the purposeful movement of people on a mission. Their casual appearance, polo shirts, khakis, business casual attire, didn't match the intensity in their eyes or the way they automatically positioned themselves to control the room. The lead figure, a tall woman with short blonde hair and calculating eyes, surveyed the medical bay with professional assessment. Maya mentally designated her Harper. The second, a lean man with nervous energy who immediately moved to secure the entrance, became Connor in her tactical mind. The third, stocky and methodical, began approaching the medical stations with deliberate purpose. Blake. The fourth, broad-shouldered and silent, had positioned himself near the equipment storage area. "Sullivan." "Ladies and gentlemen," Harper announced, her voice carrying authority that suggested military background despite civilian dress. "This facility is now under our operational control. Medical personnel will continue normal procedures. Candidates will maintain current positions." The recruits looked around uncertainly. This wasn't part of their training schedule, but military life had taught them to adapt to unexpected scenarios. Several straightened instinctively, falling into attention positions. Maya continued her examination routine, but something had shifted in her demeanor. Her breathing pattern became more controlled, deeper. Her hands moved with increased precision as she organized medical supplies, fingers testing grip strength unconsciously. Her eyes mapped each newcomer's position, weapon potential, movement patterns, calculating threats with practiced efficiency. "Ma'am," the recruit she was treating whispered, "is this some kind of training exercise?" "Focus on your ankle treatment," Maya replied quietly, her voice carrying a new undertone of command that surprised both of them. Connor approached the medical station, his casual demeanor not quite hiding the tension in his shoulders. "Doc, we need you to review some medical records. Specific candidates we're evaluating for advanced placement." Maya nodded professionally. "Of course. Do you have authorization forms?" "Medical records require proper clearance." "We have all necessary authorization," Harper interjected, approaching with a tablet computer. "We're from SOCOM's Special Programs Division. Talent identification for classified operations." The explanation sounded reasonable, but Maya's trained instincts detected inconsistencies. Their positioning was too tactical for administrative personnel. Their body language suggested readiness for conflict rather than routine evaluation. Most telling, their eyes moved constantly, assessing threats rather than simply observing. "I'll need to verify that authorization through proper channels," Maya said calmly, reaching for the facility's secure communication device. Blake moved quickly to intercept her, his hand closing over the communication equipment. "Ma'am, this is a time-sensitive evaluation. We need those records now." The room's atmosphere shifted perceptibly. Several recruits sensed the tension, their training kicking in as they recognized potential conflict. The MP stationed outside remained unaware of the developing situation inside. Maya's assessment crystallized with military precision. These weren't special programs evaluators. Their coordination, positioning, and urgency suggested a different agenda entirely. The medical records they wanted contained sensitive information about SEAL candidates, including psychological profiles, family backgrounds, and security clearance levels. Information that could be valuable to hostile intelligence services. "Step away from the communication device," Maya said, her voice modulating into something harder, more authoritative. Blake's hand tightened on the equipment. "Ma'am, I need you to cooperate with this evaluation." Around the room, other recruits began to notice the tension. One candidate near the door started to move, perhaps intending to alert the MP outside. Connor immediately intercepted him. "Everyone stays exactly where they are," Harper ordered, her casual facade dropping completely. "This will go smoothly if you all follow instructions." The transformation in the room was immediate. What had seemed like a routine administrative visit revealed itself as something far more dangerous. Several recruits instinctively moved into defensive positions, their training taking over despite their confusion about the situation. Maya stood slowly from her examination station, her posture shifting into something that made the nearest recruits unconsciously step back. Her movements became more economical, more purposeful. When she spoke, her voice carried authority that belonged to someone accustomed to command in dangerous situations. "Gentlemen," she addressed the recruits, "maintain your current positions. Do not engage unless specifically directed." The candidates responded immediately to her tone, falling into military bearing despite their confusion about her suddenly revealed authority. Harper studied Maya with increased interest. Interesting reaction, document. Most medical personnel would be asking questions or showing fear by now. "I'm not most medical personnel," Maya replied, her hands moving to check her medical bag, but her movements suggested she was inventorying more than standard supplies. Blake moved toward a computer terminal containing the medical database. "We just need access to candidate files. No one needs to get hurt here." "Access denied," Maya said firmly. Those files are classified under federal medical privacy laws and military security regulations. The standoff intensified as Sullivan, who had remained silent near the equipment storage, began examining the room's emergency medical supplies. His interest wasn't medical. He was assessing potential weapons among the surgical instruments and emergency equipment. One of the younger recruits, barely 18 and clearly overwhelmed by the situation, began showing signs of panic. His breathing became rapid and shallow, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. Maya noticed immediately. "Recruit Morrison," she said calmly, using a name she'd read from his earlier medical check-in. "Control your breathing. 4 count in, hold for 4, 6 count out. Focus on my voice." The young man's eyes locked onto hers, following her breathing instruction with desperate concentration. Her calm authority in the chaotic situation provided an anchor point that helped stabilize his panic response. Harper observed this interaction with growing suspicion. "Very interesting bedside manner, document. Almost like you've dealt with combat stress before." Maya didn't respond, but continued monitoring the panicking recruit while maintaining awareness of all 4 intruders' positions. Her tactical assessment was continuous. Exits, weapons, civilians to protect, potential casualties if the situation escalated. Connor, still positioned near the door, began showing signs of impatience. "We're running out of time here. Just give us the database access and we'll be gone." "That's not going to happen," Maya replied, her voice carrying finality that surprised everyone in the room, including herself. Blake abandoned subtlety and moved directly toward Maya. "Ma'am, I don't think you understand the situation here." "I understand perfectly," Maya said, and something in her tone made several recruits instinctively move away from the confrontation zone. The moment that changed everything came when Sullivan, frustrated by the delay, grabbed an M4 carbine from the facility's emergency weapons locker. The rifle was part of standard security equipment, intended for use only during base-wide emergencies or direct threats. "Maybe this will help clarify things," Sullivan said, chambering a round with mechanical precision. The sound of the bolt action caused immediate reactions throughout the room. Recruits dropped into tactical positions they'd been drilled on countless times. Several moved to shield others, demonstrating the protective instincts that had brought them to SEAL training. Maya's transformation was instantaneous and complete. Her breathing pattern shifted into combat rhythm, controlled and efficient. Her stance widened slightly, weight balanced perfectly for movement in any direction. Her eyes locked onto specific points on Sullivan's body: weapon grip, stance, center of mass, vulnerable areas. "Lower the weapon," she ordered, her voice carrying command authority that belonged to someone who had given orders in life-or-death situations. Sullivan swung the rifle toward the group of recruits, using them as leverage. Database access, or these candidates become casualties of a training accident. The threat to the young men under her care triggered something fundamental in Maya Chen, Navy corpsman. The protective instinct that had driven her to medicine, combined with something deeper, something more dangerous that she had tried to bury in routine medical procedures and quiet professionalism. "Last warning," she said, stepping forward rather than back. Sullivan's finger moved toward the trigger, perhaps intending to fire a warning shot that would demonstrate his seriousness. He never got the chance. What happened next occurred so quickly that most witnesses would struggle to describe it accurately to investigators later. Their memories would capture only fragments. Movement too fluid and precise for a medical officer, sounds of metal under stress, and the impossible sight of a standard-issue M4 carbine being destroyed by human hands. Maya moved with speed that defied the physical limitations most people accepted as natural law. Her approach to Sullivan covered 12 feet in less than 2 seconds, too fast for him to track and adjust his aim effectively. Her first contact wasn't with Sullivan himself, but with the weapon. Her hands closed on the rifle's barrel and stock with precise grip placement that spoke to intimate familiarity with the weapon's construction and stress points. The twist she applied wasn't random violence, but engineered force directed at specific structural weaknesses. The sound of metal fatigue was audible throughout the room as Maya applied torque that exceeded the rifle's design specifications. The aluminum receiver began to deform under pressure that should have been impossible for someone of her size to generate. Within seconds, The weapon's barrel was bent at an angle that made firing impossible. But she wasn't finished. With a final, controlled application of force, Maya completed the destruction of the M4. The rifle literally snapped in half, the receiver separating from the stock with a sharp crack that echoed through the suddenly silent medical bay. Sullivan stared at the destroyed weapon in his hands, his brain struggling to process what had just occurred. Around the room, SEAL recruits, men trained to expect the unexpected, conditioned to handle extreme situations, stood frozen in complete shock. The woman they had known as a gentle medical officer stood holding the two halves of a military rifle that she had destroyed with her bare hands. Her breathing remained controlled, her posture ready for continued combat. When she spoke, her voice carried authority that belonged to someone accustomed to command in the most dangerous situations on Earth. "Weapons secure," she announced, using terminology that belonged to special operations, not medical personnel. Harper, Connor, and Blake found themselves facing a situation none of their intelligence had prepared them for. The quiet Navy corpsman they had researched, the medical officer with an unremarkable service record, had just demonstrated capabilities that suggested an entirely different background. Maya dropped the broken rifle pieces and moved with continued tactical efficiency. Her assessment of the remaining threats was systematic. Harper reaching for something in her jacket, Connor moving toward communication equipment, Blake backing toward an exit. "Hands visible, all of you," Maya commanded, her voice carrying the absolute authority of someone who expected immediate compliance in combat situations. The transformation was so complete that even the SEAL candidates, men training to become the military's most elite operators, responded instinctively to her command presence. Harper's hand froze halfway to her jacket. "Who the hell are you?" Maya didn't answer immediately. Instead, she moved to the facility's emergency communication system, her fingers finding controls she shouldn't have known existed. Within seconds, she had initiated a security alert that would bring armed response teams to their location. Medical Officer Chen, requesting immediate security assistance. She reported with professional calm that contrasted sharply with the destroyed rifle at her feet. 4 unauthorized individuals attempting to access classified medical records. Situation contained, but requiring backup. The response came immediately through the communication system. "Medical, this is base security. Are you reporting a breach?" "Confirmed breach, multiple suspects, potential foreign intelligence operation," Maya replied, using language that suggested experience with such classifications. Around the room, the SEAL candidates began to understand they were witnessing something extraordinary. The woman who had been checking their injuries and monitoring their health possessed capabilities that belonged to the most elite levels of military training. Connor made a move toward the exit, perhaps hoping to escape during the confusion. Maya's response was swift and precise. She intercepted him with movement that demonstrated hand-to-hand combat training far beyond standard medical corps preparation. The takedown was textbook special operations. Control the weapon arm, disrupt balance, apply leverage that made resistance impossible. Connor found himself face down on the medical bay floor with Maya, maintaining a restraint hold that suggested extensive training in detainee control. Blake and Harper exchanged glances, their operational plan collapsing as their target revealed capabilities that made her the most dangerous person in the room instead of the most vulnerable. "Maya Chen," Harper said slowly. "Isn't your real name, is it?" Maya looked up from securing Connor, her expression revealing nothing. "That depends on which database you've been accessing illegally." Security sirens began wailing across the base as armed response teams mobilized toward the medical facility. Through the windows, the recruits could see military vehicles approaching at high speed. "Recruits," Maya addressed the SEAL candidates, "maintain current positions until security personnel arrive. This situation is now classified under military intelligence protocols." The young men responded immediately, their training overriding their confusion about the woman who had been treating their injuries minutes earlier. Several moved to assist in securing the remaining intruders, following Maya's tactical directions with precision that suggested complete confidence in her authority. Recruit Morrison, the panicking teenager she had helped earlier, stared at the broken rifle pieces with wide eyes. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "how did you do that?" Maya's expression softened slightly as she looked at the young candidate. "Sometimes, Morrison, People aren't exactly what they seem to be. Base security personnel flooded into the medical facility, weapons drawn and ready for combat. Their confusion was evident as they encountered a situation already contained by the medical officer they had come to rescue. "Ma'am," the security team leader called out. "Are you injured?" "Negative," Maya replied crisply. "Four suspects secured. No friendly casualties. Medical database protected from unauthorized access." The team leader examined the broken rifle, his expression shifting from confusion to amazement. "Ma'am, did you do this to the weapon?" Maya nodded once. "Threat neutralization. The weapon has been rendered inoperable." As the suspects were secured and removed, various personnel began arriving to investigate the incident. Intelligence officers, base commanders, and individuals in civilian clothes who didn't identify their agency affiliations. One of them, a woman in a business suit with sharp eyes and obvious authority, approached Maya directly. "Commander Chen," she said, using a rank that made every SEAL candidate in the room straighten to attention. Maya's posture shifted subtly, acknowledging the classification that had been revealed. "Agent Rodriguez. We need to debrief this incident immediately," Rodriguez continued. "There are national security implications that require immediate attention." Around them, the SEAL recruits were being questioned by security personnel, but their eyes remained fixed on Maya. The woman they now understood had been operating under deep cover in their training facility. "Ma'am," Recruit Morrison approached hesitantly. "Are you really a doctor?" Maya considered the question, then replied with careful precision. "I have advanced medical training, Morrison." That part was always real. Rodriguez interrupted their conversation. "Commander, we need to discuss your status immediately. This incident has compromised your cover assignment." Maya glanced around the medical bay that had been her workspace for 18 months, at the recruits who had trusted her with their health and safety, at the routine she had built around treating injuries and monitoring the physical preparation of future SEALs. "Agent Rodriguez," she said finally, "these candidates have witnessed classified capabilities. What's the protocol for maintaining operational security?" Rodriguez consulted a tablet computer. "Full briefing and non-disclosure agreements. They're already cleared for sensitive information as part of their SEAL training pipeline." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of additional personnel, including medical staff to replace Maya during the ongoing investigation and intelligence officers to secure all evidence of the incident. As Maya prepared to leave with Rodriguez for debriefing, she turned back to address the SEAL candidates one final time. "Gentlemen, your training will resume under normal medical supervision. What happened here today is classified, but remember this: strength comes in many forms. Physical capability is just one component of the warrior mindset you're developing." The recruits responded with immediate and unanimous salutes, recognizing authority that transcended her medical officer cover identity. Outside the medical facility, Rodriguez led Maya toward a waiting vehicle. 18 months of successful deep cover, and it ends because you couldn't let them threaten your patients. Maya glanced back at the building where young men were preparing to become America's most elite warriors. Those recruits are preparing to risk their lives for their country. Protecting them isn't optional, regardless of cover requirements. Rodriguez opened the vehicle door. "Command wants a full debrief on how foreign intelligence identified your location and why they thought medical records would be accessible through a simple penetration operation." "They didn't know who I was," Maya replied, settling into the passenger seat. "They thought they were targeting a routine medical facility with standard security. They weren't prepared for resistance." As the vehicle pulled away from the SEAL training compound, Maya watched the base disappear behind them. 18 months of quiet medical practice, of helping young warriors prepare their bodies for the challenges ahead, of maintaining the cover that allowed her to serve without the complications of her classified background. All ended in the moment she chose to protect her patients rather than preserve her anonymity. Rodriguez reviewed files on her tablet as they drove. Commander Maya Chen, Navy SEAL Team 6, specialized in close-quarters combat and advanced medical training. 3 years of classified operations before being assigned to deep cover medical duty. The question now is whether your cover can be reconstructed or if you return to active special operations. Maya considered the broken rifle she had left behind, the shocked faces of SEAL recruits who would never look at medical personnel the same way, and the routine that had given her 18 months of healing others instead of engaging in combat operations. "What are my options, Agent Rodriguez?" "That depends," Rodriguez replied, "on whether you want to continue hiding your capabilities or if you're ready to use them for the missions that require your specific skill set." The choice lay before her. Return to the shadows of deep cover medical work, or acknowledge that some capabilities were too valuable to remain hidden when American lives were at stake. Maya stared out at the Pacific coastline where another class of SEAL hopefuls would begin their training tomorrow, under medical supervision from someone who had never snapped a rifle in half to protect them. "Tell me about the mission," she said finally. Rodriguez smiled and opened a classified file folder. "Welcome back to active duty, Commander,"